So welcome to the lecture. When we discuss the purpose of academic writing, what we mean is, what is the point? What kind of message can you get across with this style of writing? And to answer that question, we're going to start with a definition. Academic writing is written communication that justifies a point of view or an opinion on a question posed within the context of a greater conversation in the intellectual community, along clear logical lines, while conforming to the conventions of that intellectual community. So this is important, and there are a few elements in this definition that I want to bring out. So the first is that it justifies a point of view or an opinion. That is the real purpose of academic writing, is to justify a point of view or an opinion along clear logical lines. So your justification needs to make use of facts that are accessible to everybody, that are accessible to your reader. It can't be a justification according to how you feel about something, while conforming to the conventions of the intellectual community. This is important because there are other styles of writing, arguably, where you're justifying an opinion, you're using clear logical lines, but what makes academic writing is the fact that you're sticking to these conventions, okay? Now, what academic writing is not, on the other hand, is the creative telling of a story. That's not what this is about. We're also not just effectively reporting or summarizing observed facts or situations. Also, a good academic paper is not just the writing down, of the right answer, the quote-unquote right answer to a question. The purpose of academic writing is really to justify a point of view. And since that's the purpose, generally speaking, there is no one right answer, okay? Some answers are better than others, absolutely. What makes an answer better than another answer is how easy it is to justify, or how well you are able to justify it. So I want to take a few moments here to talk about the subject matter of academic writing. Okay, academic writing can't deal with just any type of subject out there or any kind of question out there. Academic writing is really restricted to justifications that have to do with ideas or theories. When you have to critique a theory or an explanation. Same thing when you're giving an opinion about the meaning of a piece of art or literature. That we're very good at. Discussing methodology and research. We're the best, as far as I know. Academic writing is not equipped to deal with expressions of strong emotion, okay? It's also not equipped to deal with opinions that are based on things other than observable fact. We're also not very good at dealing with things such as quote-unquote rightness or quote-unquote wrongness. That's not really the field that we're dealing with. So the thing that gets tricky here, and the reason that I wanted to bring this up, is that oftentimes you'll be given a question that you may have a strong emotional opinion on. So sometimes in some courses you're asked to debate things like the death penalty or abortion or other issues that are kind of socially relevant, which you may very well have strong moral opinions on. You can be asked to discuss politics, and people often have very strong political opinions. Now, the thing about this is that these are often based in emotional reactions, right? And so the game in academic writing is to try to explain your point of view or your opinion according to universally observable facts. So just saying, well, I really feel this way, it doesn't work. That's not the game here. That's not what we're doing. Now, a quick note on sophistry. You might find it easier to justify an opinion that isn't actually your own, okay? Conversely, after writing your paper and marshaling the facts that you are able to find, you might find that your opinion, your first kind of gut reaction, is modified based on what you have found. That's part of the process. That's a very interesting part of the process. Logic, according to me, is not at all divorced from emotion or from values. In fact, logic is based on values. However, sometimes you'll find that your initial opinion was based on emotional reactions or fears or other things that you didn't really know you carried, and you'll be happy with your change of opinion. So, remember, the purpose of academic writing is to justify an opinion along clear logical lines. Academic writing is judged according to the success of that justification and not according to the opinion being justified. This is important. What you need to do to write a good paper is 1. Make sure your paper is easy to read. 2. Respect the demands of your audience. That means respecting the assignments, respecting conventions. We're going to get to that. 3. Logically support your point of view using observable facts and arguments. How do you do this? This is the list of the 3 C's. These are my 3 C's for effective academic writing. The first is creativity, the second is convention, and the third is clarity. You need to master these, and once you do, you'll be writing a great paper. So let's take them one by one. The first is creativity. Unless you have a maverick professor who asks for creativity, tread carefully. You want to keep it simple, okay? And the reason for this is that there's so much to read and there's so much to know that your professors appreciate it when you first of all make yourself easy to understand, okay? And there's nothing like simplicity for making yourself easy to understand. 2, demonstrate some humility regarding your ideas. You should know that given that you're relatively new to this conversation has been going on for a long time, there's probably somebody who has been able to effectively argue the opposing point of view. So, that doesn't mean you can't have some fun. I've compiled a list here of the kinds of creativity that tend to be well received by academics, welcomed. So first we have the reinterpretation of a previously existing construct. That's great. We love that stuff. A new angle on an old problem. This is the same idea. For example, if you're critiquing a piece of art or a piece of literature and, there's a scene that's particularly poignant that might be very sad or painful on the surface, and you reinterpret it as a blessing in disguise. This is also the kind of thing that we kind of just love. Okay. The synthesis of 2 or more disparate ideas or constructs. Now this is hard to do. This is very advanced, actually, and if you're able to do this, this is one of the best kinds of papers that you can write. An interesting interpretation of data. That's also something that's interesting to us. Sometimes facts, a given observable fact, for example, a scene in a movie that you're critiquing, or a piece of evidence from a theory, can be interpreted in one of several ways, right? And if you're interpreting your particular observation or fact in a new way, as long as you explain it properly, that's usually very well received. We like that sort of thing. If you're able to come up with an interesting argument, so an interesting use of logic, for example, the use of a syllogism in your paper, that's great. We love that sort of thing too. These are examples of creativity that are welcomed. The second C is convention. Conventions serve the purpose of streamlining communication between large and geographically dispersed communities. That's why convention is so important to the academic world, okay? Because the academic community, the intellectual community, is spread out over every continent, many different languages, almost every country. To enable this conversation, for this conversation to be possible, convention is very important. Basically, it gets rid of the fluff, whatever's distracting in terms of how you're presenting your ideas, okay? Whatever's distracting in terms of language is basically just cut out, done away with, okay? And is replaced by very strict convention. And learning to follow these conventions allows you to engage in this conversation effectively. Convention typically has to do with the four following things. So that's structure, the structure of your paper, formatting, the way that you present citations or quotations, and your bibliography and reference list. There's a hidden fifth element, and that is anything your instructor requires. Basically, if your instructor asks for you to present your paper in 12-point Times New Roman double-spaced 1-inch margins, just do it. It doesn't matter if you think your paper looks better in Verdana. You just want to follow those kinds of instructions, okay? The third C, clarity. Clarity and structure are key, okay? They are the keys to success in academic writing. This is what it's about. There's a huge amount of material out there. Your job is to make sense of it. Here are some do's and don'ts to academic writing. Don't be afraid to spoon feed it to them. Don't assume they're smarter than you. This is hard for a lot of people to understand because they think that if they write out their reasoning really step by step, that's like insulting to the professor, that's like telling the professor that they're stupid and that they can't figure it out. I'm not worried that I'm stupid, okay? I want you to be able to prove to me that your logic is good. Do prioritize a clear message above humor, above synonyms, above train of thought construction. Clarity should be your main priority. So let's go back to this question of spoon feeding information. Okay. There are some fields, such as math, where once you get good at it, you can start skipping steps. The reason for this is that typically there is only one right answer. Okay? And if you come to the right answer, your professor can be pretty sure that your logic was good. In fields that require essay type answers, there is rarely one right answer. There may be a few, but rarely is there only one. And what that means is that I don't know that your logic was good unless you spell it out for me. So show your work. That's the point of this game. Show your work. Explain your logic clearly, even if this means repeating yourself, and even if it means stating your assumptions, which to you may be obvious. Your assumptions may be obvious to you, but they may not be obvious to me as the reader. So your job is to spell them out for me, to make them clear. Finally, to recap, the point of academic writing is to justify a point of view along clear logical lines using facts as evidence. Remember that you're taking part in a conversation and that this conversation has been going on for probably hundreds of years. Remember the 3 C's. Controlled creativity. So you want to make sure that the creativity you put into your paper is the kind that's going to be welcomed by the academics who are reading it. Convention. Respect the conventions. Understand that you need them to take part in this conversation. And finally, prioritize clarity.